Well, I'm glad to see these guys back, and hopefully this one will be an improvement from their last couple of albums. I'll get into a little bit of that deeper into the review, so let's just dive into this one. Dissolution by the Pineapple Thief. So the Pineapple Thief is a UK, as I like to call them, a contemporary progressive rock band. These guys really got their start in the early 2000s, almost in the late 90s. This is from the main guitarist of Vulgar Unicorn, Bruce Sword, and I think that's how you pronounce his last name, Sword. And through their discography, I find they're a very hit and miss band. Like, either the albums are really, really good, or you can probably just pass them and pretend they didn't exist. In my mind, one of their first real staple albums was Variations on a Dream, their 2003 release. This really showed their masteries of ambient sounds and really developing an atmosphere of music. They have the longer stretches of more of like a space rock that kind of Porcupine Tree was kind of dabbling within their, like, The Sky Moves Sideways, really letting the sound and the space of the song grow. And as I said, it's a little bit of a hit and miss. Their 12 and 10 Stories Down albums were more on the miss side. Little Man for me really didn't do too much from their 2006. It wasn't until we got to 2007 where we have What We Have Sown that we really started to see where these guys really like to lengthen their tracks. Tightly Unwhelmed and Someone Here Is Missing have really captured that same kind of atmosphere within their music, but tightened up the soundscapes a lot more. And the pinnacle for me of theirs was All the Wars, their 2012 release. And this one just blew me away. Each and every track on there was a real hitter. And it held exactly what I had pictured progressive rock being within this new decade. Now, unfortunately, since then, the latest two albums from them, not including Dissolution, have really been letdowns. Mongolia and Your Wilderness for me just didn't do too much for me. And I know that they've been really rated as some of their higher ones, especially with Your Wilderness, but for me they don't do anything for me. I feel like it's a lot of substance over playing styles, and the tighter, more cohesive songs really lost what I loved about the Pineapple Thief. So now we come into their latest album of Dissolution. And for me, there's a few things that put Dissolution over the past two releases. The first is that return to a more atmospheric and a more spacey type of soundscapes. Now, true, we don't have those really long stretches of songs that we did have from What You Sow or Tightly Unwound or Variations on a Dream, but we do have some more proggy elements. We have a lot more of that really fun soundscapes that really drew me to the band in the first place. And also the runtime. Now, Pineapple Thief has always known the strength of a shorter and tighter album, and I feel like within this, they've captured on that and they've continued this trend. The album itself is only just over 40 minutes. I think only 43 and 30 seconds, which is the perfect length for an album like this. It's not overblown. It's not overly bloated. Because of this tighter structure, it allows for those really juicy moments to really shine forth. I mean, another aspect of this is the construction of the album overall. The first couple of tracks, the Not Naming Any Names and Try As I Might, these two are shorter tracks. Not Naming Any Names starting us all off with just an over 2-minute song, and Try As I Might being just over 4 minutes. So these two tracks blending into one another, being very somber, being a great introduction to the overall album. Not Naming Any Names being a very acoustical, very intimate track, just the lead singer. And then Try As I Might, I knew as this track began and continued, this was what I had really come for the Pineapple Thief. It's not quite soft rock, but it isn't like blow down the doors, grungy, very bombastic. And that's, again, why I like the Pineapple Thief. They're able to create such energy with not needing to blow down those doors. And Try As I Might does a great job of this. It feels just off of the heels of All the Wars. It feels very much of that era. And it really captures that groove that I really, really enjoyed from, say, the Somebody Here Is Missing or All the Wars styles. And I'm glad that they kind of return to this style, because for me, this is Pineapple Thief. Like what they were trying to do with Mongolia, not Mongolia, it's Magnolia. What they were trying to do with Magnolia and Your Wilderness, I felt like they were going a little too off the map, and I don't know, it felt like they were almost losing their identity there. But I am glad that they're kind of returning to form in certain respects. And we see that right from the second song of Try As I Might. And this is even continued even more with Threatening War. Threatening War does a really, really great job of just like grounding that song. I love the fact that Gavin Harrison is on this album. He's one of my favorite contemporary drummers right now. He has been with the band since Your Wilderness, and he has just been a fantastic addition to the band. And with Threatening Wars, I really like that gradual build-up that the song has. Like, it starts off really soft and really intimate like the other couple of tracks did, and as it builds it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it does kind of reflect that concept of a threatening war. It's like something's coming and we have to be ready for it, kind of an idea. So I really like how that builds into that really great play out near the end of the track. And within that play out at the end, this is where Gavin is really, really showing his skills, because for me, a good drummer isn't one that's necessarily like bombastic and just a powerhouse and just like madness like an animal, but somebody that knows when to add just a little bit of flourishes, a little bit of spice during those intimate moments. They're not just letting the band hang, they're adding a little bit more personality to the overall song. Now, the fourth track of Uncovering Your Tracks, this one sounds right out of a Porcupine Tree discography, something from like The Sky Moves Sideways or Signify. It really has that kind of a darker tone to it. It has a lot more of that meteor hooks, and I love that guitar slide that they have near the midpoint, like that really like screaming guitar work, especially when it's been leading more in the background within the guitar work. Like, it's been more of either a padding or an acoustic guitar or more of like a rhythm section. I love that when it finally takes that forefront, it's just screaming away, and that is a lot of fun. All That You've Got is definitely that I almost said Porcupine Tree, Pineapple Thief track. Like, this one is one that could have been lifted off of one of their earlier albums, but it has been modern, it has been touched up, and it doesn't feel old at all. It's just like, it captures that spirit that I was hoping that the band was going to do within their past couple of works. So the next couple of tracks of All That You've Got and Far Below, these are like quintessential Pineapple Thief tracks. All That You've Got being much more of a subtle track, and then once we have Far Below, it's really that rocking song that we've been craving up to that point. So Pillar of Salt being much more of like an interlude track. We're getting ready for White Mist being the 11-minute Goliath on here, and I'm so glad that the band decided to do one of these longer stretches of songs. Pillar of Salt, though, I do wish that the band kind of used this as a jumping off point as opposed to an interlude. I do like a good interlude track because it allows us to have a little bit of a breather. It allows us to not necessarily take a break, but just digest what we've had and then get ready for what comes next. And instead of like stopping, I wish they just kind of used that as a springboard to go into White Mist, because White Mist, being that Goliath, needed a little bit more of a spring into it. So by the time we get to White Mist, this is, you know, another one of those really long epics. I feel like this one is a little bit more episodic than more of a stretch and experience. I'm still kind of on the fence of how I really enjoy this one, because I do enjoy it. I do enjoy once they get to the play out section, but I feel like it's more of like one of their other songs, like a traditional Pineapple Thief song, and less of that experimental and explorative track. So as they kind of work their way through the music, I feel like it's a longer play out as opposed to an exploration. And in some ways this is really well welcomed. Like, what they do with the song is really fun. I like the territory that they explore. I love the play out near the end. But overall, I would probably put this on more of like the weaker side of their longer stretches of music, but it is streets ahead of their past two works. And then finally we have the last track of Shed a Light, and it's interesting that they decided to add a little bit of a full length song after White Mist, and Shed a Light does a really good job of closing off the album. And I feel like this is more of like the play out that I was hoping for. Like, I wish that they had stretched this guy into like the 10 or 15-minute mark within the play out at the end of it. So overall, this album is streets ahead of the last two of Magnolia and Your Wilderness. Like, this one just blows those two away. This is probably a little bit under All the Wars in terms of like the ranking system of all their albums, but it is ahead of some of those like miss albums. This one I would put in the hit category of that kind of hit and miss, and it is much more of a return to form, and one that I really well welcome. Overall, I would probably rate this one, though, as a stream. This isn't one that I would, like, really invest in. It's one that I would put on to, you know, get excited for one of their other releases, like All the Wars, or Somebody Here Is Missing, or Tightly Unwhelmed, or Variations on a Dream, or even What We Sow. Like, those 5 core albums, I feel, are still the pinnacle of the band, and I think this one is just underneath that. And then we have all the Miss albums, so it's kind of right there. And so, yeah, I'd say stream it. Don't miss this album, but unless you're like a really big fan of this style of music, I wouldn't really invest too much time into it. But I gotta praise the band for coming out a lot stronger than the last 2 releases. So that's about it from Dissolution, from the Pineapple Thief. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know of your own thoughts about this album by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.